Welcome back to Suzette's Guilty Pleasures. I'm here today with a guest speaker, and his name is Corey Wisdom, and we are going to be talking about generational wealth. Before we go, I want to give you a little bit of an insight on who Corey Wisdom is. So, Corey is the founder and CEO of Comis Group. Comis Group is a diverse investment holding company. It looks to acquire and invest in four main industries: consumer products, packaging, media and entertainment, and food beverage. Our firm partners with experienced management teams to create value for the companies we are involved in. Comis Group also works with small to medium-sized businesses to raise capital for their operations. Corey Wisdom is passionate about investing and financial literacy, especially in the Black community, which is what we definitely need in our community. Amen to that. So, Corey, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Suzette. Truly appreciate it.
Anytime, anytime. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you as a guest speaker is because, just as you said, we need to be able to have an understanding of what investing and financial literacy is in our community. I think in our community, we haven't really been taught about the importance of like money management. Growing up with our parents coming over here, immigrating to Canada and stuff like that. And some of us are sort of afraid of money, right? And then we just don't know what to do with money when we get it, right?
Correct.
So we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but we're going to have a discussion just around that stuff. So the first thing I want to ask you is, what is your definition of generational wealth?
Absolutely. So, Suzette, my definition of generational wealth, in essence, is literally taking advantage of opportunities to benefit the generations that come after you.
Okay.
It's simply just sustainable opportunities that can benefit the generations that come after you.
Okay.
So literally, whether it be buying a property and your descendants being able to take over that property, or even to be able to use some of the value of that property for their own other assets or their own other opportunities that they want to take advantage of, or even simple thing like handing down certain stocks. If you have a stock portfolio, handing down certain stocks. It's crazy because this is something that a lot of other cultures have been doing for years. You know what I mean? Like, I remember I was speaking to my mother, and she had a boss, and when they're young, they get these savings bonds. We still have them now, of course, but from the time that a child is young, they get savings bonds from their children, from their parents. Sorry. So as they grow up, to have that cushion right there in and of itself, I mean, you're already getting a head start in life, and it doesn't really take a lot. And I think a lot of people think that it takes a lot. One of the benefits of investing is the concept of compounding, right? Something growing over time. And when you're able to do that, you don't really need much to start with in the beginning, but the process, half the battle is really just getting that process started.
Right. And do you think that maybe within our community, our issue is we're afraid of the process, or sometimes our thinking is, nah, man, that takes too long. Like
Right.
within our community, do you feel that we're all about, I need it now. I need that gratification now. Do you think that might be an issue of why we haven't gotten that kind of thinking like the other cultures?
That's a very good point. To be honest, I think that need it now spans across all cultures, but there is definitely a cultural aspect to it. I think the process of waiting is also a thing, but I also think there's not really much representation. There's not really much examples, and also lack of knowledge, right? I mean, and there's a stigma out there that especially people in our community, that we don't work hard, or we're lazy and this something. But it's absolutely the farthest thing from the truth. We can be some of the most hardworking individuals out there, but if you have money and you're making money and it's going right out the door, it doesn't make a difference. And really, I think it's just a matter of education, knowing what to do with it, and practicing the discipline to stick to something and keep going with it. And I think those are the two key components that will make a big difference for us.
Right. It's funny when you say that. I was just thinking as you were talking, when I think of other cultures, I'm going to pick a specific culture, but when I think of like the Chinese culture, right?
Right.
And they'll open one shop, but a whole bunch of them has invested in it.
Right.
And from that, they'll go and they'll open up another shop, and then do the same thing. But do you find that, I don't know, and I don't know if people in our culture might be offended by this, but do you feel that the issue with why we cannot go that way is because we're too competitive? We always want to be better than the next person. Like, Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying? The crabs in
Right.
the bucket theory, but we're always pulling
Right.
each other down.
Exactly, correct. That's a very good point. That's a very good point. And you know what? I spoke to a couple people from other cultures, as I have friends in both the South Asian cultures, both in the other in Asian cultures as well. Competitiveness is actually still within their culture,
Hmm.
but the thing is though, a lot of them also can, a lot of them also can still have the concept of working together.
Mm,
Now, I don't think necessarily competition is necessarily bad per se. Per se, I'm not going to say. I mean, a little competition is healthy,
right.
but they understand that you know what, my dollar is going to go to my own as opposed to another culture when
Oh,
it comes down to the bottom line. When it comes down to it, and I
right.
think that cultural aspect that they've grown up with. Now, there's a whole lot of things behind it in the sense that you know we have a culture. I mean, black people, we have a culture, but it's also a bit fragmented, right? Like a bunch of black people don't come from one area, right? I mean, we have black people from Trinidad, we have black people from Jamaica, Nigeria, Ghana. So there's also subcultures, so to speak, that also kind of create some type of differences. But I think the ability to work together does play a part. I do think that that does kind of provide somewhat of a hindrance for us sometimes.
Right.
I do agree.
Okay. So I noticed that since the pandemic, this
Right.
word generational wealth has been like,
Right.
what do you think is the cause? Like, why is it that all of a sudden now everyone is about this generational wealth? What happened pre-COVID? Like,
Right. Right. It's a good point. It's a good point. I've actually seen it quite a bit too. So I think this concept of generational, first and foremost, the pandemic has actually forced us to start looking at our direction of our lives. I think a lot of times we're on go, 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 not really taking the time to sit down and figure out what direction do I want to go in. And especially being home with your families, you're probably thinking to yourself, my children, what does the future look like for them? Even so much too, many people have lost their jobs. A lot of us are, everybody's in the same boat. And a lot of us is thinking, okay, well, you know what? This is something that's completely sidetracked us. And, thankfully we have a government that can actually still, make an effort to provide some type of support for their citizens.
right.
But a lot of people are thinking, you know, how do I make sure that my future generations are taken care of if something like this were to happen again? Or, what is the economic opportunities available for them in the future?
Mhm.
If situations like these happen again, or just in general. So I think the pandemic has given us a lot of time to actually think. And I
Okay.
also believe, there's also been a lot of wealth actually surprisingly created during the pandemic as well. We see stock come, yes, we see the stock of companies shooting through the roof. Amazon has done crazy. We heard about the stuff with GameStop, which is a whole other situation within and of itself. People are actually starting to take a leap and say, you know what? I want to start pursuing that business opportunity that I wanted to start. Or I want to start pursuing that venture that I wanted to start. And I think people are starting to think now, and people are starting to say, you know what? It is possible. Let me try. Let me go out on a limb here. What better time to do it than now? I mean, I've pretty much lost everything. So I mean, why not take a gamble now? And I think those conversations are coming up, which makes it absolutely, a good thing. A good thing.
Right. I like that point. And you know what you mentioned about investing, and I'm even noticing more too, like on social media. Um,
Yes.
Everyone
Yes.
is now talking about
Yes.
investing. Like investing's always been there, but now
Right.
all of a sudden everyone has this interest on, I want to start to invest. I wanted this.
Exactly.
This. So
Yes.
what do you think, like, what's that about? And then not even just that, I guess it's a twofold question. So what do you think that's about? And also, how do people know how to do this whole investing thing? Because as much as people are saying, I want to start investing, people are just like, okay, so what do I do? Just get like a Wealth Simple account, open up
Right.
like a bank trading account, and then just put
Right.
money in and then bloop, just buy whatever. Like, what
Right.
what is there more to it? Like, what is there to it?
Right, right. So mind you, definitely has been a lot of talk about it lately, for sure. And I think it's, I mean, there is a bit of a, should I say, a popular aspect to it, and kind of a, it is attractive. It is a hot thing to do kind of now, which is good in the sense that you can actually generate a return from it. I always recommend to people to get educated first. Get educated first. I know, I get it. I know a lot of times people are like, I don't want to read a whole bunch of stuff. I don't want it. But I'm like, you know what? I get it. But trust me, it will pay dividends in the long term for you to be able to at least learn certain concepts. You know what I mean? Because, no one's really going to have the same enthusiasm and desire to grow their wealth like you. like your own self, right? And you know, it's easy to say, you know what, I'll just hand it off to a manager at the bank who's going to take a super amount of fees. And much on top of that, if I don't have a lot of money to start with, I don't want to be spending a lot of my stuff, my money towards fees, especially if they're not really growing my portfolio significantly, right? So I tell everybody, I'm like, I know you guys don't want to hear it. I know, I get it. It may sound like a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but just try at least read like a chapter a day, read like a page a day, something, grasp one concept a day, one definition. So I tell everybody, just read, at least get the basics. Then, look at, and this is why I also say to read, because it will point you towards, okay, should I open an account like a Wealth Simple? What do I want to achieve? It also gives you the insight into say, okay, by the age of 50, by the age of 60, I want to be generating this type of return. I want to have this amount of funds available. So, by being able to choose, for example, the right trading platform, do you want to do it yourself? Do you prefer to just hand it off to Wealth Simple, who handles everything for you? So that's, all of those play a part. But I tell everybody, I know you guys don't want to do it. Just read a little bit. I get it, Suzette. I get it, Susie. I get it.
Tell you. So I'm not gonna lie. So I've always heard about this investing thing for like years, right?
Right.
My daughter got into it.
Right.
And she was always like, you need to invest. I'm just like, dude, first of all, I ain't got money. But as you said, we have the mindset that we have to have a good amount of money in order to start, right? Still punked it, still said, not doing it. And I'm not gonna lie, pandemic hit. And I think it was when I forget what happened, but anyways, I was like, she hit me and her siblings up, and she's like, yo, you guys need to invest in this. And I'm like, all right, I'll put it in, right? And I just started from that point, right? So that's how I did it. But I'm not gonna lie to you, Corey, and I know that you're right, we should do our own research. It's too much. And for somebody like me, I'm not a money's person so that I can read and like grasp or understand.
I'm gonna disregard. I'm not accepting that, Suzette. I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that.
Terms and things like that. I'm just like, you know what? You tell me what to invest in, and I'll do that. That's how I've been doing it.
So let me ask you a question. How do you know that you're not a money person? How can you say that? How do you know you're not a money person?
When I say I'm not a money person, I just mean like I'm not a money person in the sense of the terms that are used when it comes to investment. Like there's so many different terms like dividends. What's dividends? There's terms like, you have to, what is it? A drop or I don't know, but there's a whole bunch that I've seen on social media. I'm like, I don't know what y'all are talking about, but I see people say, yo, you should invest in this. It's really good. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should look into it.
Right.
Investing,
Yes, right. Yeah. And we all are guilty of that to some extent. I definitely agree with that. But when I hear people say, I don't really understand it, or my brain's just not into like money and stuff like that. But it is, and it can be done. Think of your own career. Your career, I guarantee you, has had some parts in it where you're like, I do not understand this. Even when you're learning or when you're in school, there's plenty of times where you've said, I don't get it, I don't understand it. Right. But in your career, right, I'm sure you've been in it for a while, and you're obviously able to overcome that hurdle. And you were determined. You were determined to say, you know what, I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to excel in my career that I'm going into. And the thing with money is that if you understand the basics and the foundations of it, I mean, of course, there's some other things that can make it a bit complex, but I recommend everybody to understand the foundation and the basics, and it's not difficult. It's not difficult. Okay. It's not difficult. Okay. There's a lot of resources out there, and I'm happy to, even send you some that send you some labor. But Investopedia is one I tell everybody to go on. It's very, very very simple, and they provide all the illustrations, all the videos. So that one is a good one. Yeah, and I can send you some more links. I can send you some more, but that's the one that comes off the top of my head.
Okay, that's good. Because I do have a few friends that has said, like, since the year of 2021, that they have said they want to start investing and they're just not sure where to go, how to start. So I have a question for you then. And I know that you already mentioned and said that like if you go through the banks, you have to pay these fees and things like that. But you say that it makes, for somebody like me who doesn't want to do the research or whatever, does it make sense to get like a financial, is it stockbroker or somebody?
In terms of like to advise you on what to buy?
Yeah, versus, I guess I understand the benefits me learning it myself, but if I just don't have that, then does it make sense to get a financial stock advisor? And if I was to do that, what comes with that? Like, how does that work?
Right. So there are advisors at the banks and so forth, right? And they do take a fee. Now, I think it varies between banks, but I know some can take, 1.5%, based on the total amount and so forth. So what I would recommend is if you want to actually go with a financial advisor, this is kind of where I say it kind of comes back to the learning, because you can actually, if you tell your advisor, say, hey, you know what? I want to be in mostly growth stocks. I want to be in dividend paying stocks. And what some advisors will do, is because they'll say, if you don't know, they may steer you towards things that may be more profitable to them. Now, you may make some money, but it may not 100% align with your goals. So what I would recommend is, if you don't want to manage it yourself, understand where you want to be, what you're trying to achieve. And when you meet with that advisor, you say, listen, this is the goal that I'm trying to hit. This is what I want to do. And also, always negotiate your fees. Always negotiate your fees. A lot of people don't think you can't do it, but you can always negotiate your fees. So
Okay.
that will also help. That will also help lower your total cost and also increase your overall return on investment, so that you don't have that money consistently going out. So I would say, if you don't want to do it yourself, and say, you know what, I really don't have the time, try and get some of that basic understanding, and you tell the advisor, hey, I'm trying to get to this point.
Right.
I'm trying to get to this point. This is what I want to achieve.
Okay. All right. What do you think? And as I said, like I know now the generations are different. Like the younger generation is like, I don't know if I want to say the millennials, but I guess the millennials and
Right.
younger, some younger, they're
Right.
starting to, they seem to be able to have more of a better footing, I guess, or more of a better understanding of this whole investment, financial literacy, and things like that, versus like maybe the older generation.
Right.
I don't know if I want to say baby boomers, but the ones that like the sandwich generation. What
Right.
do you think that what do you think was missing between both generations? Like why all of a sudden, like, because to me, I feel like the millennials are so much smarter than us, and they're like, oh my god, you guys are so much on a better foot than we were. Like, what happened?
Right. Right. Well, first and foremost, I mean, I always say, I don't know. I don't necessarily. We have access to more information. I'll definitely say that we do have a lot of access to more information, and thankfully to technology. I also think that the prior generations, it was more so of a mindset of preserve.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Preserve, and that also stems from the era of the Great Depression, which happened in the late 1920s, where people lost everything, right? And especially them growing up and having their own children, which would have been the baby boomer area, the baby boomers. They told their children, work hard, save, no debt, play
yeah,
it safe, all that stuff. So that mindset, which is kind of comes from a place of fear, and I understand it. When you raise your children like that, they're going to think, okay, well, you know what, I just want to save, I just want to work hard, I just want to save, no debt, make sure I'm comfortable, I just don't want to lose what I have, I just want to protect what I have, I don't want to take risks or gamble. And especially if they have not, the baby boomers are also not educated themselves,
mm,
they're going to pass it on to their children, right, who are the millennials and so forth.
right,
For example, our parents, who came from, the Caribbean, so to speak, life is tough there.
right.
Life is very difficult. And for them to come here, they're just saying, I just want to create a life where my children can have opportunities. I don't even think they cared about necessarily achieving, super large milestones. I think for them, they just wanted a better life, and a better life for their children.
Sure.
So I think the difference is definitely access to more information,
Yeah.
and having the runway or the foundation from our parents to be able to go out and explore and take those risks, which I'm truly grateful for. Absolutely.
And I definitely have to agree with you on that risk, the word risk, because
Right.
I think that is what it is. I think a lot of stuff why some of us older people are so hesitant are sort of like, I don't know,
Right.
because we're so afraid to take that risk. Because
Right.
and I do agree with you. Like for me, what I was taught from my mom was just make sure you have this and this and this, right? It was never, oh, you need to leave. You know what I mean? The only thing that was ever told that you need to leave was life insurance to make sure you
Right. Right. Yes.
and all
Yes.
that stuff, right?
That's a big
So
one. Yes.
yeah, right. So I think I definitely agree with you. We're not as much risk takers like the younger generation is, right?
Correct.
Because
Correct.
at the end of the day, you younger folks, if everything else fails, you can all just move back with your parents and just
There
live,
you
right?
go. There you go. Right. There you go. There you go. Mom's never gonna say no to coming home, right? So absolutely, it's true. Very true.
That's funny. Okay, so I have a question for you, and I've heard this also during the pandemic. I've heard this word that's been like thrown around a few times: hyper consumerism. What
Yes.
is that?
Yes.
And What is that about? And how does it affect, I guess, us financially and things like that, like an individual and stuff?
Right. I think hyperconsumerism can be defined in several parts. I think it's the relative ease of access to buying products. For example, our Amazon, or our Amazons, which come the next day, and the next day, next day delivery, and the Prime delivery, and so forth. And I think it's also this concept of what we like to call, I guess, in certain communities, flex culture, where we do things for the gram, and we do things
Oh,
to show off on the gram, and we got to be seen, and we
right,
got to show off all of our toys and our products. So I think that culture and that environment of just I need to have this, I need to have this to because it's a part of who I am, and I need to show it. It's become a big thing. And with Instagram, Instagram can be good, but it also has a lot of its downsides, right? And it's very easy to get sucked into that. When you see a bunch of people who look like they're living the life, right? And who doesn't want to feel like they're living the life, right? So I mean, it's very easy to get sucked into that. And you know, consumer first and foremost in North America, consumerism has always been a thing. That's the reason why China sells to us and other countries want to sell to us. U.S. and Canada are big markets for consumers, right? So it's always been a thing. But the hyper consumerism definitely is can be defined as just the excess of buying things, and the excess of needing this and having to have all the time.
right.
But surprisingly, and this kind of bit of, not to go too far off topic, but I saw an article the other day, actually it was 2 days ago, that said, especially with the pandemic, surprisingly here in Canada, we're actually saving quite a bit.
Oh,
And yes, we're actually saving quite a bit, surprisingly. And the government, once the pandemic is over, they're a little bit concerned about the fact that, of course, consumerism drives the economy, and a little bit concerned about consumer having enough consumerism going to be able to drive the economy and get it back up and going again, because they're saying we're saving at some extreme levels.
right. And then
Yes,
I the businesses like closing down because of the
exactly,
pandemic, and it's like, where are we going to get
exactly,
stuff that we need, right?
right,
And
exactly,
we end up going to the US to go and buy our stuff online, and they're
right,
actually benefiting off of us. So
correct,
that makes
exactly,
sense. That
exactly.
makes sense. Okay. So what would you say to somebody now who wants to like start to save or start to invest or just even try to start to build a portfolio, if that's what you want to call it, um, to I guess have that generational wealth, whether you're starting at a young age or whether you're starting at an old age? Like what are the most important key factors?
Right. So first thing first, I would always say to everybody, pay off your debt.
Right. Okay.
First and foremost, pay off your debt. And the reason why is, I see some people saying, I want to invest, and I also but I want to save, which investing is not necessarily bad, but the cost that you're paying on your debt in interest usually is higher than the average returns that you're going to be getting on your investment over time, right? Because investment is supposed to be for the long haul. So if you have credit card debt at 19%, there's no investments out there paying you that on average, right?
Right.
So I would say for everybody, clear off your debt first. Now, in terms of people who want to invest, I would say definitely for you to have savings, of course, but coming back to the education piece and learning about investing,
Right.
definitely find the platform and the system that works for you. So as I mentioned, in your case, find the advisor, and be sure and let them know in regards to what you want to do and what you want to achieve. And
Mhm.
if you want to do it yourself, then I would say definitely find the stock trading platform, if, so to speak, and find out, and also find out what your goals are
Right.
first and foremost, and
Right.
then also be in it for the long haul.
Right. Okay.
Definitely be in it for the long haul. And there's a lot of stock trading platforms out there. So you have your TD Ameritrade, you have your CIBC Investors Edge, you have Quest Trade, and each one of them has their different their different uniqueness to it. So it's definitely say do some research into the ones that work for you. But yeah, start small. You don't need a lot of money. Find a stock out there that is fundamentally strong. One that has some moderate growth. If you're young, find one that has some moderate growth. If you're a little bit older, find one that's a little bit more stable.
Right.
Mainly just because I say, if you're young, take some more risk, as opposed to if you're older.
Yes.
And yeah, and start with a little bit of money. If you have $100, put $100 in there. And if you can only buy one or two shares, that's fine. You keep adding to it over time.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are. The whole process, the whole point of it is just getting started as soon as you can.
Right. And I guess the other thing that people need to also have is definitely patience because of the process.
Yes, yes,
as I said, like sometimes we want to be able to open up our thing and be like, oh, I made some money today. But you may
Right.
not always make money, or you may end up falling, right? So I mean,
Correct.
it's about being able to have that patience.
Yes.
I have and talking in regards to like investments, and I might be a little bit off track. What about RSPs? Because a lot of people talk about RSPs as a good investment, but I've also heard RSPs as not a good
Right.
investment. What would you say in regards to RSPs?
Right. In terms of, I think that was the popular opinion. I think things are starting to shift now because with access to more information and wanting to trade for yourself. The thing with RSPs is, people kind of count on it as the kind of like your safety net for like, later on in life. The thing is, the cost of living has gone up so much, and it's difficult, and it's kind of, it's a thing where, if I'm maxing on my RSPs, you're banking only on that safety net. I always encourage people, try to diversify your income streams. So I would never say don't contribute to your RSP for sure. But what I'm saying is, also invest in stock, have a stock portfolio. If you can purchase real estate, purchase an investment property. If you can start a business as well. I mean, if you're physically healthy and able to do something, I would say maximize your income streams. I mean, I remember back in 2015, before we had this whole real estate boom, which is insane. Like, I mean, the house prices that, you can buy a detached in Brampton, for example, you can buy a detached for, 500,000. Now the same house in 2020 is going for like 1.2. It doesn't matter how much I contribute to my RSP. There's no way I'm going to catch up. There's no way I can catch up to that. You know what I mean? And that's what makes things so tough. And, salaries aren't, people don't really get, the average individual does not get, what's it called, a wage increase often, or a raise often. So, for example, in the concept of house prices, if I have house prices going up 10-15% a year in the GTA, and I'm only getting a raise of 3% every 2 years, I mean, that's insane, right? I mean, there's no way I can catch up. So, we have to think outside of the box, and we have to be a little bit more creative in the way we approach things. And I'm not saying we have to all live in the GTA. I mean, and I know
Yeah,
we all want to, but we ultimately we have to think outside the box.
for sure. And you mentioned the word diversify, and I just want to clarify. When you say diversify, do you mean like having the different streams of income?
Yes, correct. That's correct. Yes, yes.
Okay. And you said something in regards to like even buying homes, and even if you wanted to do like a rental investment. And I noticed that that's also becoming another big thing, right?
Right.
But my question to you is, does it make sense to, okay, so let's say you figure, you know what, I'm gonna do a rental investment, right? But you're gonna stay and rent. Like, so you're gonna rent where you live, but do a rental investment. Does it
Right.
make sense to do that versus I buy a house and I like have my own home, but then buy another rental investment? Does that make sense? What I'm asking.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying for sure.
Okay.
So what I would say is calculate calculate your, so if you're currently renting right now, right, and you want to buy an investment property, what I would say is to calculate your income that you're going to be making from the from your investment property, and also look at how much you're paying in rent. A lot of people always have this concept of, paying rent is throwing away money, and I want to debunk that. And
Okay.
the reason being is because first and foremost, you still need somewhere to live,
True.
right? And if I'm living in a home and I'm paying a mortgage and so forth, sure, yes, I understand that, we're banking on the house appreciating, right? But I actually don't really have any. I can't benefit from that value unless either one, I sell the house,
Right.
or I refinance and take out some money and put some cash in my pocket,
Right.
or I get what's called a home equity line of credit, and I have like a line of credit against the equity in my home.
Right.
So a lot of people have this concept where it's just like, if unless I have a mortgage, I mean, sorry, if I'm paying rent, it's throwing money away. No, because you also have a lot of expenses as well. If you buy a property, if you own a property, that also you don't benefit from as well, which is, property tax.
Yeah.
If you pay a maintenance fee, if you have a condo, you don't get those fees back. You know
Right.
what I mean? There's general upkeep, so forth. So all those are expenses also as well. You don't get that back as well. So you have to calculate, the money that I'm making from renting on my property. And I always advise people, do not rent out a property and then just basically subsidizing it, not making no cash flow for the simple sake of, well, I can just sell it in 5 years. Because true real estate investing is supposed to be, the appreciation is supposed to be the gravy on top. You know what I mean? And the cash flow, the money that you collect from your rent is what's supposed to work. So if
Right.
you're renting, it's not necessarily a bad thing if you have a property that you own and that you rent it out. You have to calculate though, what am I making from this property, and what am I paying in rent?
Okay. And that's good that you actually said that you wanted to debunk the rent versus owning, because I know that there has also been that whole debate, right? Which is
Absolutely.
like, why am I going to be paying other people's rent when
Right.
I can have my own? The same amount of money I'm paying for this person's mortgage or what you're paying for rent, I could be paying that or maybe less in my own home. But
Right.
as you said, people don't really realize all the other things that comes with owning a
Absolutely.
home. So it's like
Absolutely.
you end up house poor. And who wants to live house poor in today's time and age, right?
Exactly, exactly. And the thing too is, it's like, upkeeping a home is a lot of work. I think a lot of people, they like the ownership, which it can be a sense of pride,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of work. I have terrible allergies. I don't want to cut the grass every 2 weeks, which I may sound kind of lazy for that, but I'm not the handiest person. I don't want to rip out a pipe and replace a pipe. No, I can't do that. You know what I mean? And if I'm not going to do it myself, I have to pay somebody to do it, and that's an expense.
Right. And that would be me. I'm not gonna lie. Pay somebody to like mow my lawn, shovel my driveway. I don't got time for all of
Absolutely,
that. Like,
absolutely,
nah,
absolutely. In this weather too, I don't want to be shoveling the driveway.
right?
No way.
But you know what I find, and I don't know, and I mean it's like this in all cultures, is that a lot of us have this mindset, or it's like we've been ingrained with this mindset that you're nobody until you own a home.
It's true.
And I think that's where also the issue is, right? And then
Yes.
that's why everyone's always trying to fight to, I
Yes.
need to get a home. I need to get a home,
Yes.
which is why, and it might come back to what you said. When our parents came from the Caribbean or wherever, their
Right.
mindset was we need to just try to preserve and maintain
Right.
and sustain, right?
Right.
And it wasn't so much like, and some of them was like, we need to get a home so that we know that
Right.
we're good. We came to foreign and we have a home and we're making life
Right.
really, really
Right.
in foreign. You're actually struggling like anything, you know what I mean?
True.
But like, what do you think that that has sort of maybe shifted a bit?
Right. Yes, I do. I do. And it is a deep conditioning that we have in our minds, programming that if you don't own a home, what are you really doing? Like, I mean, like,
Right.
that's like, you've made it once you own a home. You know what I mean? And I think that also stems from the fact where it's just like, that is ownership. Like, that is your, I guess, so to speak, ultimate investment, right? But I believe it has shifted a bit because we're taking the approach and the risk to start businesses, and we have people doing very good businesses. I mean, if I'm renting, and I'm paying whatever amount that I want in rent a month, and I have a very successful business, I mean, which one is benefiting me more? I mean, me owning a house, paying a mortgage, or me having a business that's growing 15% a year or 20% a year, right? And that's generating profit for me, and put that profit in my pocket. I can save it, I can invest it, and my business is still continuing to grow, right? So I think it has shifted a bit because I think the younger generation is starting to see that no, your home is not your only. I wouldn't necessarily call it an investment, but your home is not your only source of wealth. There's other ways to create wealth out there, and I think with that education, maybe in the future we may see people to say, okay, you know what, I don't need to kill myself to get a home, or that's not the ultimate end all be all.
Yeah. And I think that's a message that really needs to go out there, is
It
that
does.
you don't have to, because I'm gonna tell you. So like, I'm going to diverge into personal, but I remember I was talking to a guy and in the past, and I remember he was saying to me, so I was renting a home, right?
Right.
And I remember his big thing was like, why are you renting? Like, why do you not, at your age, why do you not have your own home? And for me, I was like, because I'm comfortable.
Right.
But
Right.
then it started to get my mind going, and I'm just like, shoots, like, do I like am I that bad because I don't own a home and because I'm actually comfortable at where I'm at? Because the way I see it is that if I'm renting, and just as you said, when you're renting, you have a little bit more money to your advantage that you
Right.
can do a lot more, right?
Right.
Not to say that if you have a home, you can't like travel, you can't this, you can't that,
Right.
but it's like you still have to put into mind in your mind that, but I got this bill to this tax and this and that. Versus with your rent, you just have your rent, your utilities, boom, that's it, and you go on and you live life, right?
Right. Right.
And so that's why I'm just like, I think we have to really get that message out there that like it's okay,
Right.
it's okay. But I think house prices are killing everybody right now anyway. So
No, it is. It is. I mean, unless you're going to be, and that's why everybody's kind of moving outside of the GTA. Now, in terms of renting, though, I will say, I wouldn't recommend somebody rent forever, though. I'd never recommend somebody rent as a way of life.
okay,
Now, renting in the short term, but renting in the short term or renting for a few years, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Of course, as long as you're saving, you're investing, putting your money elsewhere. But if I'm 65, 70, I mean, especially when I'm not as mobile, I don't want my landlord to say, okay, well, hey, I need the house and I have to pack up and move, especially if I don't have that much people to depend on to help me, right? So, definitely, I wouldn't say as a way of life, but no, renting is not necessarily a bad thing as long as you are, of course, utilizing your money elsewhere, which is, saving it and investing it. And the only person you can say if you're truly doing that is yourself.
Right. It is true.
Right.
Yeah. And I do agree with you with that because I mean, definitely renting is not a long-term game because you're right. Your landlord can come to you anytime and be like, yo, I'm about to sell this house. You got to dip.
Exactly.
What do you do then, right?
Exactly. Correct.
And but I hear you.
Yeah.
So I have a question. So I know maybe investment or saving, all that stuff might be different when you're single versus when you're married. How is it different? Do you change your habits? And what would you recommend to, I guess, a married couple versus like a single person?
Right. So definitely, I mean, there are some changes and adjustments, definitely. So I mean, when you have somebody else come into your life and you guys are creating this new life together, I think, and this is why the speaking of having that money conversation early is important. You know what I mean? And sometimes it can seem a little bit taboo and be a bit uncomfortable, but seeing where two heads are at is very important in getting some insight. And it can also be the foundation to start early for saying, okay, you know what? This person has kind of shown me like, you know what, maybe I should kind of cut back on traveling so often. And who knows, you may even open the person's insight into seeing that, you know what, maybe I should start investing, or maybe they didn't even know how to invest. And you can be that person that, explains to them how to invest and shows them how to invest. But in terms of when you get married, I mean, definitely you guys got to be on the same page, of course. But, if it's a situation where, well, kids aside, of course, kids have their own expenses, but kids aside, if it's the two of you, I think one of the most amazing things is that you have two incomes usually, right? And if you have a second person there, I mean, you can speed up that process in building with somebody. And I advise every person out there who has a significant other to, you guys talk about investing, create plans together in investing. And if you are a single person who invested a certain way, bring the other person on board and explain to them and show them the benefits of how going this way and investing and saving this way can benefit the both of us. That's one of the great things, and that's why they always say, married people tend to create more wealth as opposed to single individuals, because you also have that second income. But it's easier to be disciplined. It's if I have to give an account to my wife about me spending X amount of dollars, I mean, nobody likes to feel that way, but it keeps each other in check. You know what I mean? And your wife is not going to necessarily go out and buy an LV bag if she knows that, like, okay, shit, I gotta explain to this guy, like,
Right.
right? So it's a good way to keep each other in check.
It's true. It's true. And I mean, you also do have those couples where they're like, I need to have my separate account. So you can
Right.
whatever.
Right. Hey
Yeah.
man, I'm not gonna get into the whole how it's joint and all that stuff, but I mean, to each his own. But yeah, definitely having that plan together, you guys can do some real damage together.
Right.
You guys are on the same page, especially reaching those goals.
For sure. And I have a question. Do you feel that whether you start at a young age, middle, or older, where would you say would be the best place to start? What's the best thing to start with creating the generational wealth? So when I say like even middle, I mean like even like maybe like 30s to like 40s who may not had that thinking before and it's now thinking like where do you think is the best place to start depending on where we are on the scale of our age?
Right. I mean, so in terms of creating generational wealth, you mean? To be
Start
honest, I sorry. This is specifically for your descendants, or you're just saying just in general?
just in general, like, as I said, like for me who was told like from my mom, like this is what life is about supposed to be. But like if I want to start to say like at my age and whatever, I think I want to start creating some kind of generational wealth. Like where would I need to start thinking about that, or what direction do I need to go into?
Right. So, for example, one of the things that I would say, right, and especially having older kids too, is look at things that you guys can do together, right? I mean, even if it's simply buying a property together, and for example, if you guys all put in buy a property together, that rental income, after the expenses are paid, what if that excess rental income you guys put it in a stock account, right? And throw that money in that stock account over time, and then when your children get older or they start to have their own kids, their kids will be able to benefit from that portfolio that's growing. You know what I mean? And the good thing about property is that you can refinance it, take some cash out. So you don't necessarily have to sell the property itself. So let's say if you buy a property and it's gone up 10% or 20%, and you guys want to hold it for, let's say, 5 years, you can say, okay, you know what, I'm Susie. I'm cashing out now, guys. You guys are responsible for handling the rest. I'm taking some of my cash, and you guys carry this on. And
Right.
when they get older, they can decide, okay, you know what, the property has grown some more. I'm going to take some money out of it. We split the rest of it. We keep managing it, and we pass it down to our next kids who will have ownership in it. You know what I mean? Or you guys can even decide to say, hey, you know what? I'll sell the whole thing. We each take our own portion, and they decide for their own individual families how much they want to allocate to their children, and they can do their own thing. So even working with your children right now, I mean, if they're of age, and they're capable of working too, doing stuff with them too is a good way to start as well.
I like that. I like that. And when you say refinancing, and I don't know if maybe once again, this is like I don't have that knowledge, but is refinancing or taking a loan against your home a negative thing though?
No, it's not. It's not at all. People refinance all the time. So it's literally just getting a new terms of your loan. That's really all a refinancing is. So if you have a mortgage that says, hey, you have to pay back X amount of dollars in 25, 30 years. But what they have is called a 5 year in a 5 year term. So at the end of 5 years, you can choose to continue with the original terms, or you can choose to go with, for example, another lender and get new terms of your loan.
Okay.
And people refinance, for example, if rates have gone down, right? I mean, of course, your cost will be cheaper.
Right.
Or if they're saying, okay, my property in the 5 years has gone up $100,000, the banks will lend what's called, according to your loan to ratio. So what that is that if you can borrow against 75% of the value of your home. So if I bought it for 400,000 before, and now
Right.
it's gone up to five, before I can only borrow against 75% of 400,000. Now I can borrow against 75% of 500,000. So
Right.
there's right. So that extra money you can then use.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
That's good information. Okay.
Right.
But
So yeah, so no, refinancing is not a bad thing. No.
okay, as because I've always thought that taking a loan against your home or refinancing it is sort of a negative thing toward like because not only does it extend your mortgage time, right? Because usually
Right.
mortgages are like a 30-year, but if you refinance, it's like you're adding more time to it, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So that's why I always thought that it was sort of a negative thing to do.
Right.
Um,
But when you refinance though, like I mean, for example, if you get a mortgage that's 25 years, when you refinance, you don't have to get another 25 years. People will do that if they want to get like lower their payments, but a lot of people are just like want to discipline in regards to paying down their mortgage. So if I got a 25-year loan initially, at the end of the 5 years, I may refinance it for 20 years. I'm not going to go for another 25 years, or some
right.
people may say I want to refinance it for 15 years. So that they're cutting down the time frame as well.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's really good information. I really appreciate that because I mean, I learned a lot. I can definitely tell you that much. And I will definitely do some of my own research in regards to stocks.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Send
thank
me
you.
those links so that I can also add it for our listeners so that if they
Yes,
want to also learn
yes.
the basics and things like that. But one question I do have for you is what is going on with Comis Wealth? What are you doing?
Comis Group. Comis Group.
Comis,
Yes. So
sorry. What's going on with your company? Like what kinds of things are you doing? Like what projects have you done or stuff like that?
right. Yeah. So I mean, we've been doing quite a bit of things. I mean, I haven't really pushed the company too much in terms of from a brand perspective or visibility. But my background is in finance. I mean, I worked at CIBC for a few years. And I also started my own loan facilitation company as well. But prior to that, so yeah. So I mean, ultimately, there's two aspects of our business. So we have the investment business, which we work with some investors that we have as part of our network, and we look to acquire companies in packaging, consumer products, food and beverage and so forth. And those industries, our team is a pretty experienced team. So, my CFO, he has, 20 years experience in terms of, different industries he's worked with. So those are companies that we'll look to buy, and I'm also big on ownership as well. And I want to see more ownership in terms of, people from our culture in different areas. So that's kind of why that's kind of one of the reasons that I push into these areas in regards to, what we look to acquire and so forth. So that's the one aspect of our business. The other aspect of our business, which I think is crucial, is in terms of access to capital. Now, I've developed a network, or our group has developed a network of investors and lenders over the years, and I think a lot of the problems or a lot of the issues that individuals have is access to that capital,
Right.
right? And being able to bring those two together, it can make all the difference. I think a lot of these ideas are good, and a lot of these concepts are good, but we need the capital for them, and being able to place the capital or being able to raise the capital for these businesses, can really get it going off the ground and allow, these businesses now to actually also provide a product or services. And especially when it's coming from our own community, we have the opportunity to reinvest back into our communities. If we have these businesses doing these things, it makes all the difference. Yeah. So that's why I'm committed in that regard to, raising financing for companies and so forth. And, we have access to lenders and investors who are in various industries. So, whether you're in the tech space, whether you're in food, whether you're in, products and services, that's one of the reasons why, we have that aspect of our business.
Sorry, I want to ask you a question. You mentioned that you're very big on ownership and you want to be able to see a lot of more Black people in regards to ownership. So then
Right.
how do you do that? How do you push that out there? Because I do believe in that too. Like, we need to see more of our faces. I mean, I think that Black people are such like intelligent, strong culture, right? That we're not out there and being seen. I think, no disrespect, please, to any of my listeners, but I feel that a lot of other cultures are intimidated by us and the skill that we have. So because of that, we're always held back in upper stuff. So how do you push that to get Black people more into ownership?
Right. I think first it starts with representation, right? To be, first and foremost, being an example to show people that yes, we can actually own things that are not necessarily expected of us. Like, for example, there's a guy here in Brampton. He's a Black guy and he owns a pizza store. You know what I mean? And I'm like, a Black guy owning a pizza store. Like, it's usually another culture that owns a pizza store. And his pizza's good. You know what I mean? So I always try to buy from him. Or there was this other Black lady who owns a dollar store. You know what I mean? And it's usually other cultures that own dollar stores. But I think when we start to own businesses and we start to venture out into these other areas, not only do we show we can be an example, but we can also partner with some of these businesses as well. In the sense that if I'm a business owner and I, for example, know somebody who's very talented at, for example, operations or marketing or even financial analysis or planning, who's to say I can't make him a partner in a business for something that I want to open up in another area. Do you know what I mean? And that's why networking is also very key as well too. Being able to find access to individuals who have those skill sets as well.
Okay. And then you were talking about trying to help other people gain capital. How does your company do that? Like, how do you guys go out to be able to push that? Especially because you said you're not really out there brand wise, but how do you do that?
Correct. So, I mean, a lot of our business has been in the terms of referrals. So any deal that I get involved with, I always say, I make it a mission to say, okay, is there anybody else out there that needs capital? Is there anybody else out there that needs financing? So a lot of our deals are also referrals. We network as well with small businesses. I mean, we always keep in touch with small businesses because they also know of other individuals who need financing as well. So that's also, one of the things that we do. So we're always looking to expand our network, always looking to broaden our network. But for 2021, we definitely do plan on, pushing the narrative out there and getting more exposure so that we can get access to people who we can't traditionally reach, to who we can then provide, opportunities for them. And, being on platforms such as this, is also one of those ways to do that as well.
No, for sure. And I feel that the pandemic is really bringing out a lot more Black small businesses, right? A lot more, a lot of us are now saying like, nah, I can do this. And as you said earlier, we lost jobs. So it's like, how do I survive now? How do I provide for my family? And you come up with a business idea and then look, you never know, right? There's a girl that I saw on social media, and during the pandemic, I think it's been 7 months now, she created a candlelight business.
Wow, okay.
And she's blown up, right?
Wow, okay.
Like in indigo. She's selling her candles in indigo and things like that. And she just started from her home
there you go.
Gotten bigger. So I'm saying, so as I said, like, us Black people, we're very skilled, we're very knowledgeable, and we are, as I said, when we come together, we are strong, right? So I mean, and you're right, we need to have those examples to be able to show not just for ourselves at our age, but even for our generations after us, right?
That's correct. And we have been making a lot of progress. I mean, from where our parents came to where we are now, I mean, we still got work to do, but we have made a lot of improvements. You know what I mean? Like, I'm seeing Black people buying properties for the first time. I'm seeing them making investments. So, it's really just a matter of keeping the momentum going and just keep getting out there, keep reaching and keep aiming high. Definitely.
Yes. And you definitely need to push your brand out a little bit more.
I will definitely do that.
And I'm glad to be able to help with that too. So,
Absolutely, absolutely,
but
absolutely.
I do have to say, so I am grateful that you were able to join me today. I appreciate the information because, as I said, it was a wealth of knowledge that I think a lot of people are not aware of, or they were sort of aware but wasn't too sure, or they were just like, "I want to do this. How do I just jump in head first?" So you
Right,
sort of opened up a lot of doors and a lot of knowledge for us to actually understand on how to go about things. And as I said, if you want to send those links to me, then I can at least put it and then give it so that other listeners can
yes,
get the information.
yes,
I will also include your contact info so that if anybody does want to get into contact with you. I know that Comis Group is sort of deals with more of I guess a higher level, if that's what you want to call it. But let's say if it was somebody that wanted to just start to learn to invest, they
right.
can connect with you. Like they're just fresh, just one.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you can send it. You can still send it to my email. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Corey. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Suzette.
Anytime. And it was great talking to you. And
Yes,
you never know, we may talk again in the future.
there we go. There we go. I'm all for it. Thank you so much for having me, though. I truly appreciate it.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.